Okay, I'll start over again. I started talking before I started recording. So welcome everyone. Today's February 25th. It's the fourth Tuesday of the month. This is our monthly research meeting of the Cosmobiology Institute. The Cosmobiology Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the greater good, which means we're here not to make money or whatever particular personal aggrandizement people might be interested in, but to further research collectively. Um, and there are only, in my opinion, less than a dozen people, at least that I'm aware of, who are seriously involved, who have the time, energy, experience, knowledge, etc., to be conducting research. And we have several of them right here. So Linda conducts research, Darlene, Michelle, we've got a lot of people. I'm going to be guiding this along, especially with Christopher Benton. We've been working together. Christopher's been is one of the main people publishing in the Correlation magazine. And we always compare technical notes on things, and we're learning from each other all the time on technical issues of research, as long as with the rest of you as well. So what I want to do is for any of you to tell the rest of us a research project that you're interested in, you're already involved in, how we can put minds together. If any of you have been involved in academic level research, you know that there's always a team of people involved. You just can't do research by yourself. It's too complicated, too many issues. Everybody's overlooking things. You've just got to bounce ideas off other people, sort through it. It's just too vast for one person to just jump in. I mean, occasionally people do, but I mean, in general. So that's what we're here. We're to be a team to help, and especially to help you. Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to the public good. So this is one of our open forums to help you. Does anybody want to start off with anything, doesn't matter what your level of knowledge is in research or astrology, we're here to help make discoveries. I'm of the opinion that we're at the beginning of a revolution. We'll find out, but I think astrology does produce measurable effects, and we want to discover those. So we've got a lot of experts here and people with different experience all to work together. Who wants to stick their neck out on something, even just a question, anything research related on your mind that collectively we can brainstorm about and work through?
Hi, David, it's Penelope.
Yeah,
I know you've already given me some time in the YouTube thing, but I've actually charted up this a Saros cycle by vibrations, by strongest vibrations. And I know that I can screen share it if you like or not. But I know that you said that the one of the big faults for researchers is being too generalist, and not kind of honing in to, a definable question. And I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for patterns, and I decided to choose to divide the 32 vibrations into just looking at the top 10 vibrations and to see if a pattern was visible.
right.
Uh,
Okay. Let's jump into what you just said because you just made some very, very important points. Um,
yeah.
so let me just summarize some things here about modern research. What did I do here? I started typing in here. Whoops. Hold on a second. Okay. All right. Modern research methods. Okay. One of the basic things is just simple clarity and the ability for someone else to replicate what you're doing. So a lot of it is just removing any fuzziness. Like it's kind of like being a lawyer, like what were you doing on October 5th at 7, like what the hell are we talking about? So what is your question? This is the first thing about research. The idea of research is to get to learn something that we don't know. That's the goal. We want to learn something that we don't know, or we want to gain more confidence. Maybe we think, I'm pretty sure of this. You want to be more sure of it, or maybe find out that you're off base. we want to learn, and we want to learn collectively. So what is your question? Which is, what are we going to learn? And other people need to be able to replicate your research. Otherwise, it's not research. It's your personal research. But when we say research in the 21st century, we mean shared research. We mean stuff that is shared among us. It's like a form of democracy. It doesn't matter, how smart or whatever you are, you have to put something down that other people can follow the process and replicate. So a lot of it is just defining something clear, what the procedures are, and making it clear enough that someone else can replicate it and know what we're doing. So you're interested in the Saros cycle. So the Saros cycle is a series of um, eclipses, and I think they occur every 11 point something years, if I remember right. There are
18 years, I think it is.
18
18
years?
years?
Okay. Um, so every, whatever it is, 18 years or so, an eclipse occurs with very similar qualities. Did you all know this? It's very interesting. So every so many years, there's several cycles that coincide, and the eclipses are very similar. They occur at a similar latitude on the planet. They occur about 120 degrees from the previous one, so every three come back again. So it's a cycle of eclipses. It's been known for many, many thousands of years. And um, so some people believe that the Saros cycle is a historical story. A Saros cycle has a beginning and an end. It'll start at either the North Pole or South Pole, and then it will gradually move across the globe. And I think it's what, over about 70 to 80 years. I think usually about 72 years, if I remember right. If anybody remembers these details, you can just unmute yourself and share. I'm just recalling all this from
Oh,
memory.
okay. So the Saros cycle, just to help out, the Saros cycle I've looked at it has 70 hits,
Right.
70 eclipses in that particular Saros cycle. It starts in 15 something or other, 1521, and finishes in 2765, right? So
Wow.
that's like that's a big, like that's a big amount of time. And I may also find this in new moons and full moon cycles, but this would maybe be fruit for understanding cultural trends, because it's such over such a long period of time. And the question really is, do Saros cycles, yeah, understanding cultural trends over a long period of time, and yeah, yeah, and I'm watching you. So
Yeah.
the question is, do Saros cycles have a pattern of dominant vibrations over the cyclic period, which is a reflection of the cultural movement in that cycle?
Okay, now let me interrupt you because this is what a lot of research is about, is breaking down what we're saying into concrete things. So I'm going to write down here that this is a general question. That's
Yeah,
fine. We got a general conceptual idea. And now you're starting
yeah.
to break it down and you have two questions. We have A, if I'm understanding this correctly, and maybe I'm not, but
Mhm.
A, um, what are the strongest vibrations in a Saros cycle eclipse? And B, does this strongest vibration show up in cultural trends? Is that pretty good?
The trouble is, you've got strongest vibrations. somebody might just look at the first vibration, and I don't want to do that, right? It's this, strongest collection of vibrations, if you like,
She
rather than
said
a
the top
singular
10 of
vibration.
32 of the first 30.
Yeah, top 10 of
Okay,
32.
now
Yeah,
that's good. Now we're getting more specific.
yeah,
So do
yeah,
this is what's necessary for research is you start from a general idea and then you get more and more specific. You have to kind of commit yourself to some definitions, or it can be more exploratory. You can just say, well, I'm going to just explore around, and that's fine too. You just have to be honest about what you're doing. So you do want to define it. If you define it, you get a clearer answer. If you
yeah.
don't define it, it leaves you more open to possibilities. So there's a trade-off. So you're going to go with do the top 10 vibrations of the first 32 vibrations indicate cultural trends.
Or show, I think she wanted to start with, is there a vibrational pattern?
Is there a vibrational pattern? Yeah. Is there a synchronicity? Is there a beyond the realm of chance?
Okay, do the planetary configurations in the time, because you're going to specifically look at the planetary configurations. You're not going to just say, oh, 7 vibe, was there 7 vibe stuff happening? You want to say 7 vibe is strong, and it was a Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus 7 vibe. And so that's what you want to know. Is that right?
No, no,
Okay.
not at this stage. No, I'm just being more generalist at this stage. I understand that it would be really lovely to do that later on once I've determined that there is actually a vibrational pattern over the Saros cycle. The first thing I'm interested in is actually determining whether there is you did a diagram, you showed that there is potentially a flow of vibrations over the
Right.
period of a Saros cycle. Yeah.
Okay, so we have
Thank you.
another question that's maybe prior to all these. Is there a or let's put it this way, are there among the 10 strongest vibrations, I'll put it this way, we can edit it. Among Are there among the 10 strongest vibrations repeating vibrations across Saros cycle eclipses? Is that pretty close?
That's pretty close. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Little, little by
Thanks for lending
little.
me your brain,
It's it's
Santina. Thank
really
you.
it's really part of A. You made B, but the B and A are really part of the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I think A is first. Thank you. So A is what are the strongest vibrations? In
B
And
is
then B is we have to first see what the strongest vibration is, and then secondly, are there repeating vibrations, uh, strong vibrations across Saros cycle eclipses?
right.
We have to first identify them before we can see if they're consistent. It's good to break that down into two pieces. Okay, now
Yeah.
and then Penelope, do you want to from there go on to the next things about what their effect
No, I want
is?
to, what I would really like to do from that is, my novice's eye is already seeing patterns. I see patterns in lots of things, but I can see patterns already in this Saros cycle.
Yeah.
So then I want statistical assurance that this is correct. That the patterns that I see are bona fide.
Oh, cool. Statistical, um, what was the word you
Confirmation,
She said assurance.
assurance, I like that word. Uh,
assurance. Yeah.
Statistical assurance that these vibrations really are. So I have a suggestion or an idea. We're brainstorming, not really a suggestion, but my thought at the moment is this. Um, Research project number one. This could be your first research project, is to understand what's going on in the sky with Saros cycles in terms of vibrations. That Very often it's good to make a research project answer a question. Because research projects in general are not like books where you have chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. They're little short things and they have, a little statement at the beginning about what it is, what the question is, what the answer is. And then the next one is usually done as a follow-up study. So research is usually incremental. You clarify one thing, not always, but in general. So I would say that right there makes for an excellent project, and we can define more specifically how you would do this. And then, depending on what you find from there, you could decide, like, what if you were just hallucinating these patterns and there aren't any, So then we don't need to do project number two. So I think depending on what you find there, you'll be able to clarify project number two. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great. Now that we've been talking, it took me, I've got pages and pages of Saros cycle vibrations, which I've put in a table.
Yeah.
Taken me half the week, but hey, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Um, but talking to you, I'm thinking, well, I've done cycle 138. Oh, fancy that's associated with my date of birth. But now I'm thinking I should be looking at another one and seeing if there's the same sort of flow of
Right,
vibrations in another Saros cycle.
right.
But that might even be more fruitful than doing a statistical analysis. I don't know which one comes first, the chicken or the egg, but yeah.
Right, right. This is beautiful. This is beautiful because this is exactly what happens in research. You often end up with forks in the road. And very often there isn't one fork that's necessarily better than another. Sometimes there is, but sometimes it just depends on how you want to proceed. So before we continue, Christopher, do you have anything to add at this point or mention while we're digging in this far?
Yeah, these are just some observations looking at this from the outside, questions that come to my mind. Uh, the first question is, how are we going to determine which vibrations are the strongest,
Right,
right? There has to be some objective way to proceed to determine, which ones are stronger. And
Okay.
in terms of patterns in the vibrations, I think there needs to be a definition of what you mean by a pattern.
right,
What are the specific things you're looking at?
right.
And on the one hand, I get the sense that you've already begun some exploratory analysis by looking at
Yeah,
Saros
yeah.
cycles, and this is great. Uh, let's see, I think the other uh, day, Santino, you called it making friends with the data.
Hmm.
And I used to call it getting down and dirty with the data. Just sort of, I love getting my hands in the data and looking at the actual numbers, seeing what's actually going on, but just beginning with some simple exploratory research, looking
Right,
for things that pop out is great. But uh, at some point, you need a kind of a control group to compare everything with. And you could just uh, use a random selection of dates which are not um, eclipse dates, for example. Uh, because I remember, when I first started doing some statistical astrological research, I thought, well, maybe, more athletes are born with Mars and Aries, something like that.
hmm,
And I was looking at athletes, I found a whole lot of them are born with Mars and Aries. But then I looked at non-athletes, I found that just as many of them are born with
right.
Mars and Aries too. So, uh, you need some sort of control group to compare your results with,
Yep.
because if you're looking at non-eclipse charts and you get the same patterns, the same vibrations popping up in those, it doesn't quite mean as much. And then the other thing, after you've thought about all those things, then you need to think about if you want to do a statistical test, what kind of uh, statistical procedures should I be, doing to compare these two groups? And if you went along the lines that I'm thinking, it seems like a chi-square test uh, would, be a good one to use. But, those are just some questions that come to mind that might help sort of flesh out procedures as you go along with this project. But getting started with just sort of the explorations you're doing, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so this is great.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, that's wonderful, Christopher. Thank you so much. So what we've done here is we've gone from general ideas, we started defining more specifics, and then Christopher's filling in, at the more granular level, more, defining this. And that's exactly how research proceeds. Um, so let's first backtrack to the idea of a research project as just defining what the strongest vibrations are and if they are consistent, and not going into the interpretation yet, but leave that for a second project. Sounds good, Penelope?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What's really important in research is that the researcher likes it. You gotta like it. It doesn't matter what if all the books can say, you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and you're sitting there thinking, I don't know, that doesn't sound like fun. You're probably not going to make any discoveries. It's got to fit the rules and feel good. That's the optimum thing. So this feels good to you, and this is a generally accepted procedure. So this is what we should do. Now, um, what are the strongest vibrations in a Saros cycle? Let's review the topics and then before we get to the details. So one, we need to determine what the strongest vibrations in an eclipse is. Number two, we need to see if they're repeating in sequential eclipses. And then three, we want to do some kind of statistical evaluation to be absolutely clear that this is happening and not just rely on a visualization. I think that pretty much covers what you want to do in project number one. Okay, great.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Then Christopher was right on target and going into details. We're ready for the details. So are you comfortable with the idea of looking at the top 10 out of the first 32 vibes? Is that how you wanted to do it, or do
Yes, look,
you?
I had a background, a disgustingly long period of time, like nearly 50 years ago. I did stats at uni.
Okay,
But
great.
so it's a long pause between statistics.
Right.
But I'm keen to move into the statistical side, I suppose. And I was very taken by your idea of making the imagery graphic.
Right.
That was your idea in the YouTube session.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think one of Chris's questions was about how will I determine which vibrations are strongest? And I'm very confident about using Linda's frequency finder as a starting point. That it's flexible and it's wonderful, and I want to use that. So I can reconfigure and broaden the subject matter at my leisure when I do that. So yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna use Linda's frequency finder program. And one of the features
Yes.
of frequency finder, because not everybody here, is familiar with everything we're talking about, is that it tells you for any chart, and we can put in a Saros cycle chart, it will tell you what it gives several listings and information. One of them is the top 32 vibrations. And
Yep.
that's the part of the output from the program you're going to use. It does all kinds of other things, but that's the part you're going to use, right?
Well, it's
Yes.
not the top 32 she's talking about. She's talking about the first 32, which it also shows the
Oh, I
first.
might have that I meant to say that, but I probably didn't say it correctly. So use Linda's frequency finder program to find the top 10 vibrations of the first 32 vibrations
Right.
in
Yeah.
each eclipse chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're going to take that information, um, and I guess you can just copy and paste it for each chart and then we would have that data because it's basically just 10 numbers. Like it might be 7
Yes.
vibration, 11 vibration,
Right.
23 vibration. So you're just going to take those 12 numbers,
10.
take the 10 numbers, um, uh, identifying uh, whether it is number 1 to number 10, because it's a big difference.
Are you going to keep track
Yeah.
of the scores too, Penelope, for the vibration?
The
Are
the
you just going to,
scores.
the scores, are you just going to look at them?
Oh, what I did, Linda, as a little aside, which I sort of didn't want to bring in, was I also made 2 extra columns for the strongest vibrations in 360, and I just put them there, strongest vibrations 1 and 2, just for my own viewing. I'm not actually interested in the patterns created by
But
that,
you're
but
not
just,
paying attention. You're just looking at the order of the vibrations. You're not paying attention to how strong they are.
no,
Frequency
no,
Okay.
just the
finder,
Okay.
order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
frequency finder, it gives a score for each vibration. Like a score might be 300 or 350. Um, I would suggest that number might be useful. I mean, for now, it might be good to have the sequence and the score. Um,
Okay.
I'm already thinking ahead to a research design. And so, for example, um, one idea is to use data visualization. This is what we talked about in my YouTube meeting. We also discussed this, but not most of us were not there. So what I had come up with, and Philip was there as well, he came up with the same idea, is that you could make a graph similar to, well, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, something like this. Um, just this isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but just to get the idea, you could have a graph where um, at the bottom we would have eclipses, consecutive eclipses, and green. I mean, there's a few ways you could do this. You could do it by number or by score. Along the left, you could have 1 to 10, right? Or 1 at the top as strongest. So you could have 1 at the top, 10 at the bottom. And then if, no, that wouldn't work. How would you do this? I guess or you could have the 32 vibrations when you're doing the top 32. Um, you know what you could do? Here's an interesting idea. What if you took all 32 vibrations and you graphed? I'm trying to think of how we would do this. Let me think. Oh no, here's another idea. Okay, you take the top 10 vibrations, you assign a different color to each one. So number 1 vibration could be red. Um, number 2 vibration could be blue, 3 could be green, whatever. You could have 10 colors. maybe the first five are brighter or thicker. You can make them thicker and the others thinner or something like that so that you can see them all. And then for the red, suppose the number one vibration is 32, then it would be down here at number 32. And if the next one it was 17, it would jump up to 17. So you could see how the red, which would be the strongest one, goes up and down through the 32 vibrations. And you could see if it lands on particular vibrations and stays there. That would give you a
That's a
visualization.
good graphic. Yeah.
Yeah, that would give you a
see that.
visualization of what's happening to your number one vibration. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. I'm thinking of this just off the top of my head. Ultimately, we'll do a statistical analysis, but it'd be nice to visualize and see what's going on. Because sometimes the visualization tells us as much as the statistics, or it delivers information in a different way.
Santino?
Yeah.
Here's what I'm thinking of. First, are we starting with the natal chart as the first vibration, or are we excluding that and going to start with second vibration?
Natal chart is the first vibration.
Okay. So, if I were doing it, then, I would try and rank, for each eclipse chart, which vibration is strongest, which is next strongest, and so on. Just rank them, all the vibrations from 1 to 32. See what I'm saying? So if the fifth vibration is strongest, and that gets ranked number one. But anyway, do that for each eclipse.
Right. And that's what she's going to do. That's exactly what frequency finds out.
I mean, include all 32 vibrations
Yeah.
and rank from strongest to weakest.
Yeah.
And then, you could create a nice bar graph of that with different colors to see, which vibration popped up as the stronger ones most often. And then you could do that for your control group also. And you could use their various tests you might use, or things you could look at, like I think Spearman's rank correlation, to see if all those vibrations get ranked in the same way.
Right.
But that's a little further down the line. And
What I was thinking, let me interrupt there on that point, because I had a thought, and I was thinking it, but I didn't say it, which is, Penelope, I don't know if you're also thinking this, that the strongest vibration in an eclipse, suppose it's 5 vibration, that it might stay 5 for a while and then change to something else for a while, and then change to something else for a while. And like you said, this goes like over 600 years. So maybe for the first 30 years, it's tending to be a few vibrations, and then it's changing. So we wouldn't necessarily want to look at all 70 vibrations to see which is strongest, because you're guessing that it changes over time, but you're not sure over how much time, and you're not even sure if that's true at all, but that's your guess. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It gets more complicated.
So my initial thing, and this might interest you, Starlene, is the 32 vibration pops up, but it's not dominant. It has a period in the Saros cycle where it's really active, where it's continuously appearing in the top 10 vibrations. And then at another stage, it'll be 11s and 22s, for 200 or 300 years, it'll be 11s and 22s. And then you think about cultural change, the restless seeking, 200 years of restless seeking, and then boom, another 100 years of action or whatever. I mean, I don't even need to go into the cultural thing. The first thing is actually discover if my hunch is in any way statistically accurate, or whether, as Chris
Yeah,
said,
and that's why,
exactly the same thing would happen
Yeah.
with
yeah,
random
because I had talked to you,
choices.
right, I had talked to you before, so I had that information in the back of my mind, and that's why I was thinking of the graph, because if it's
Yeah,
staying on 11 and 22, we would see the graph hitting those points repeatedly. Um, yeah, so
yeah. But
Yeah.
mining the 32 vibrations might prove other cycles as well. I just thought the top 10 might be a way of kind of containing the information for statistical analysis that would be more useful than looking at the whole 32. That's my
normally that's
possibly
correct. Yeah,
naive approach, but that was my approach. Yeah.
right. Normally that's true. We want to limit, we don't want data we don't really need. But sometimes when you're coming up with a solution, like in thinking about the graph, what'll happen if we only take the top 10 is things will just fall off the graph periodically. So why not just show that it went all the way down, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
So sometimes as you come up with a way of dealing with it, your first intuition ends up not being right. Like my first intuition is, yeah, let's just only do the top 10. Then I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to graph it, why don't I just show all 32 and I can see how low it went below the top 10. Um,
Yeah, and depending upon what statistical analysis you do, you may need that information for all 32 vibrations.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so
That's a good point.
I always say, after you pose the question that you want to get an answer to, the next thing I always have to worry about is how am I going to answer that question?
Right.
And that kind of directs me to what kind of data do I need and what kind of statistical procedures will I be doing. But something you mentioned about these, patterns, the vibrations sort of remain stable for a while, then changing to something else and then to something else. That immediately brings to my mind the question of is this going to be a cycle of changes that we can see repeat over time? If we have 5 vibrations for a while and then 32 vibrations and so on and so on, is there going to be a point in time where we see that cycle repeat itself?
So fascinating.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have another thought on just this graphing idea. We could graph that like from 1 to 32. You could have one at the top, 32 at the bottom, and you could watch the red, which say, because that's the brightest color here I'm looking at right now. If the red was number one, and it would go, say, from 1 to 12 and whatever, it would just go up and down. We could see what the number one vibration is. Another thing you could do, which should actually be almost identical, but maybe not, would be instead of having 1 to 32, would be the actual score for that vibration. So if it scored, this could be 0 to what's like, Linda would know this, like what's like, or Penelope, you probably know too, what's like the maximum score that typically would ever happen for the strongest vibe?
Oh,
1,000.
no, I have seen 4,000 and 5,000 for the strongest vibe.
Wow.
Very
What,
rarely.
okay, here's another question. What do 95% of the vibrations fall within? What's the
We would have to do some work.
500.
somewhere
Within,
around 500?
yeah,
500.
within 500, I say is probably right.
So what
Yeah.
you could do is you could put 1 to 500 or 1 to 600, it really wouldn't matter very much. And you could plot the actual scores instead of the rank. That graph should be extremely similar to the rank from 1 to 32, but it will be a little bit different. And that might be
Plot the
interesting.
scores and then put the vibration on the top of the score or something. Put the
Well,
number of the
again, your
vibration on the
number,
top.
it would be exactly the same as what I just described. Red would be your number one score. Oh, no, no, that doesn't make sense. You would have the score. Oh, let me think.
You'd have to have the numbers on one side of the vibrations and then the strength of them across the bottom or something like that, wouldn't you?
Strength on the bottom. On the bottom.
No,
Yeah.
Oh, no, forget that idea.
Strength on
That's
the
not a good idea.
no, that's
The
not
one,
good.
numbers on the
the 1 to
side.
32 works better. Never mind.
You could, I'm envisioning a spreadsheet where you have a row 1 through 32. And then down below that for your first eclipse chart, you have the score that frequency finder gives for each of those vibrations for that chart.
Right.
And then you go on to the next chart and you have all those scores for the next chart, and you do that for all the eclipses you're going to look at. And then at the bottom, you could add up, compute the average score for first vibration, average score for second vibration, and so on.
Yeah.
And then,
That
you know,
sounds
create
great.
a,
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
create a visual
Sorry,
graph
the
of
only
that.
thing,
Hmm? Yes?
sorry, the only thing is that I suspect that we're going to come across vibrational families. And so the score is going to be less important than the actual family, like the 11s, 22s, and 33s, or the 16s and 32s, or,
Yeah.
that there'll be vibrational families. So that's my initial, whim, I suppose, which I might disprove very quickly. But my initial whim is that the vibrational family might show up, mathematical family might show up and be of more interest than the score.
Right.
But
Okay.
there we
Well,
go.
so that original idea of 1 to 32, and
Yeah.
then red is your number one vibration. So if number one vibration is 5, it'll be on 5. So you'll see if the number one vibration, if it stays on certain things, and then if it gradually changes.
Hmm.
Like, does it keep jumping to 30? Like, do we see it keep hitting 32, and then all of a sudden it's going up to 11 and 22, and then drop down to 32 again? And, you would just be able to visualize. And then from that visualization, if we find that it tends to jump around every 5 years or every 10 years or every 50 years, then we could design a statistical analysis based on that expectation of how long it typically lasts or something. We'd at least have a feeling for it. So that's my suggestion would be get all 32 scores, put them like in a spreadsheet. So the rows could be, just like Christopher said, the rows could be, you could have 70 rows for each eclipse. And then you could have 1 to 32 across the top, and each cell would be which vibration was at that rank. So 1 to 32, or no, one. How should we do it, Christopher? Should we put the rows would be the eclipses,
Yeah. Each row would be a different eclipse.
and then should the columns be
The vibrations.
they should be the vibrations 1 to 32.
Yeah. And you could, in each cell, you could do
Your
it two
problem is
ways.
you've got 3 variables.
Well, the third
Um,
variable would be the score you put in the
if you're
cell.
happy to screen share, I'll show you what I've done so far.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you. Um,
I was going to say you could do it two ways. You could put one time the frequency finder scores in the cells for each vibration,
that's what
and
I
another,
was thinking. Put the frequency finder scores
yeah,
in the cell. Yeah. No,
or
not scores, the rank, I mean.
yeah, but then you could go back and do it with the ranking, which
No,
vibration
she's
was,
already got it.
yeah, and you could see which seems to be most relevant.
She's already got it. Exactly what we're
Yeah,
doing. You're way ahead of us, Penelope.
yeah.
Oh, well, I haven't done a 32. I've done the top 10. And then I thought, oh, I better put the two strongest under 360. But look, I don't know if I'm, too much of an old hippie, but I can see patterns in things. I've gone through the, uh, yeah.
We're all
Um,
old hippies.
uh,
We're all old hippies on this bus.
yeah. Um, Sorry, young people. Look, 32, 32, 32. There's the 32 season. It clicks in. Then it sort of, goes away again. Two 19s in a row, 19 all over the place.
Wow.
I mean,
There's
like
a,
it's
yeah.
11s. There's the 11 period. So many times you'll get a sequence of 11s and then suddenly it'll flip over into 10s or 12s in the next few cycles. Like it's rich. It's
So
rich with numbers.
so you're already done what we're speculating about.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking, this is beautiful. What I'm thinking is, why don't you keep sharing that for a second? Um,
Oh, sure, sure.
I think what both Christopher and I
Um,
are thinking is instead of stopping at 10, we're going to turn you into a real mule, Penelope.
oh
Oh,
no. I
well,
think Christopher should do it. It was his
yeah, well,
idea.
it's his idea. We'll whip him into doing it. Somebody goes from 11 to 32. Put all 32 in
Yeah,
there. Or maybe this is good enough. Well, I think the next thing to do would be to graph this where
right.
um,
The thing I was talking about, David, is you've got the eclipse, you've got the number of the order, and then you've got the order and you've got the vibrations. That's three different things.
yeah, so we've got all three here, don't we? We've got the eclipse at strength and we have the vibration in the cell.
Right. What she's done is she's taken and put which one of the vibrations is strongest and then second and third.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
doesn't order the vibrations in order. You don't have one line that you're graphing with the vibrations in order. You can't have a line with the vibrations in order, the eclipses in order, and the order in.
Yeah,
Oh,
right, exactly. The thing that I was debating in my mind was swap, instead of having strongest at the top, is have vibration at the top and put in the cell what its rank was from 1 to 32. You could swap the cell number and the column header number.
yeah,
I'm
but
not sure which one makes more sense.
I,
Well,
I, I uh,
I'm sorry.
what I would do with this would be to set up down below it. You can do in Excel this thing where you set up the frequency. And so then I would down below this go 1 through 32 underneath this table and have Excel count in the strongest vibration how many of each vibration there are. So that then you would say, oh, I've got 100 charts here and I've got 20 that are 32 vibration in the strongest vibration, and I've got 15 that are 26 or whatever. You would get a counting of the one column, and then you could count the next column and the next column.
Yeah,
And
let me just say, that's similar to what Christopher said. And the thing I like that, the thing I don't like about it is this might not be so much about what's consistent over the 70 eclipses, but what the changing trends. So that we've got two 24s in a row, we've got two 13s in a row. This is the thing that's capturing, for second strongest, for example, and a bunch of 32s here. So it's the changing trend, I think, that Penelope is fascinated with. And that would show up in the graph. And then from the graph, we might decide some way to analyze like the changing trends. Like, do they tend to go for two or three eclipses or six or seven, or exactly how do these trends happen? And I think a data visualization would help us with that.
if you make a graph where you graph the eclipses against the vibrations for vibration 1. You can have a graph that way. And then you could graph the eclipses against the vibrations for vibration 2 as a separate graph. That way
Okay.
you
Yeah.
could make
Yeah.
a graph.
Why not put both of them on one graph
Yeah,
with different colors?
yeah.
Okay, with different colors you could do that, yeah.
One thing I would probably do if I had this data is I might take the first three columns for strongest, second strongest, third strongest, and for each vibration in that uh, grid, I would count up how many times it appears.
That's what I was saying a while ago.
Yeah, I thought it might be. And then, you might see something like, 24 vibration occurring a lot more often within those first three or four
But
columns.
again, the critical thing that Penelope's interested in is what if you have a number that only appears 4 times, but they're almost consecutive? Like she's interested in changing trends, not necessarily a dominant vibration for 600 years, but there might be a dominant vibration for 100 years or even 50 years. Like
Yeah,
what was going on during the
Or a
1960s?
dominant family. Now, one of the
A
problems,
dominant family. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but Penelope, one of the problems with families is these are not all equally strong in 32 vibrations. You have
Right.
you have the 2 family, 2, 4, 6, 8, which is half of them. You have the
Right.
5 family, which has 6 possible entries. So you have to do some kind of equalizer to figure out what's it's going to be very difficult to figure
Mm.
families because the families aren't equally possible in
Okay.
the range.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, but even though you couldn't compare the families against each other, it would be fascinating, for example, to combine 11 and 22 or whatever and see how that family goes up and down,
Yeah.
well as the individual. So when you graph by
How
strong,
would you combine 11 and 22? Would you add the strength of the two of them? If 11's at number 2 and 22's at number 10, do you make that be a 12 or what?
Well, I think that probably stretches into taking information for the whole 360 vibrations when I get that far, and I'm not actually mentally capable at the moment of doing the p-values of trends that I find in the top 10. So I'll just aim for the top 10, even though the idea of 32 makes absolute sense. I just need to develop a simple process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there some kind of a statistical test that will deal that I know it's not a t-score, but isn't there some kind of statistical test related to this, David, that could be used? Is that new one you just put out, possibly useful?
um, yeah, I'm thinking, like for when we do the economic things, we run a correlation coefficient, a Pearson R.
Mm-hmm.
So Pearson R is good with predicted, well, I guess that wouldn't work so well. But Christopher, you were thinking of some kind of a chi-square might be,
yeah. Well, for what I was thinking of originally, we've talked about a variety of ways to look at the data, and each of them can lead to different statistical tests. In terms of the patterns repeating, that's making me think of autocorrelation.
yeah,
And
like a time series thing.
yeah, and so there may be some tools out there for that can help
Yeah,
us.
could be a time series analysis. Time series has to do, is often used for changing trends and what we call autocorrelation. Time series is a fairly complex area of statistics, but it's often used in economics because you're tracking changing trends.
Yeah.
Possibly some kind of time series, but I'm kind of more interested in understanding what it's doing first, because sometimes in understanding what it's doing, it changes your perception of how we can analyze it.
Right.
So
And
If
I'm thinking maybe the next step is to, as you're saying, create some data visualizations.
yeah,
Take your data and see if you can create some line graphs or bar graphs out of it to give us a visual image of what's going on with the data. And then we could, if you have something like that ready next month, we could take a look at it.
Can I say something?
yeah,
When it comes to these experiments that we are doing, I think it's important to ask the question why we're doing it, and then how useful it's going to be, because we're going to make a better model when we ask those questions. We're going to frame things much more exacting, and we're going to get to the point where we won't be fuming on to where to go and localize what effort we're going to put to make this thing work. I think when that's done, it's more clearer. We have a more sharper direction to where we're going.
can I answer that?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm doing it because I can. I mean, this is, you know,
I love that.
this is this is a first. I mean, it's so exciting. What other idiot would be up at 3 o'clock in the morning putting these numbers in a table? uh,
Well,
I'm doing it because I can, because at long last we're stretching beyond we're stretching beyond the archetypal, and we're getting into the non-archetypal, and vibration is part of the non-archetypal concept of what surrounds us. And if we're going to be non-archetypal, then this information is like gold. It's really like gold. As we become and embrace vibrationalness, this is a descriptor for the eons to come.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Didn't you say that this hasn't been
I,
done before?
I detect that you're very romantic about numbers and all that stuff. And those are very good energy to use and cap when we doing this sort of things. I'm just saying that with all of that romanticism, we can put it into a focus and get it to where it's going to be. How we going to use it? How we going to present it to practicing astrologers or people who are around
Well, yeah,
asking the
that
question.
would be phase two of the research would be studying the cultural trends. But first, yeah.
Yeah. So that I mean, on the get-go, when you ask those questions, when you ask the question why you're doing it, you're going to frame up a lot of stuff to make it pinpoint what you're going to get other people involved to know, hey, this is what you can do. These are the apparatus you can use to get it done. These are the things that we can also add, because why is such an important question
Yeah.
when you getting done.
Yeah. I heard Penelope in the course of the thing she was saying that why she's doing this is because she wants to figure out if there are vibrational patterns across the eclipses.
Yeah. Yeah, very clear. I have a question. In the graph that I proposed, you would have the 32 vibrations. Penelope, please keep that up for a second because I want to refer to your graph,
Sure.
to your
Sure.
table. I had it reversed, I think. My idea was that you would have when we do a line graph of this thing, we would have the 1 through 32 across the top as what the rank is from 1 to 32. And here you,
That's a different way of looking at the data, David.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. When we go to graph this, the way you scroll to the top, Penelope, so we can see the headers.
Want me to scroll to the top?
Yeah, just scroll to the top. The way you have it here, what we would have at the top, this is what I want to think about. Is it going to be a nice graph to have? You'd actually need like 32 colors, I guess. Like you would follow the four bright, like the strongest vibe could be 1822. I think that's going to be a little confusing. Like you'd be graphing, if you were to graph this, you would have a color for 18.
You'd have a color for each eclipse. And you would go
No, you
up.
have a color for each. No, the eclipses would be along the bottom. We'd take the eclipses, put them along the
Okay.
bottom.
Okay.
The eclipses would have to be along the bottom. Along the left, if you took this stuff at the top and you put it along the left,
Yeah.
you swap these two, but then you would have strongest vibration at the top. I think it's a little more difficult to see what's going on. I would take this graph and instead of having 1 through 10 strongest, or possibly, I'm just suggesting this might be better or equally useful, is to have 1 through 32 rank across the top and put in the cell what the vibration is.
Now wait, that's
Yeah.
what she's got.
No, I
Yeah.
put in the cell what the rank is. I'm sorry.
Yes,
So
thank you.
across the top, you'd have the
Vibration numbers.
vibration numbers.
And put in the cell the rank of the vibration. If one, 2, 3, if number 1 is 15 and
Yeah.
number 2 is 3 and number 3 is 12, etc., you would fill those numbers into the slots,
Yeah.
vibrations ordered across the top.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking, because then you could convert this graph into a line graph, which would show you how, like you might want to know, how is 11 vibe ranking? Is it ranking near the top or is it down? It's
Yeah, you would
weak or is it strong? And to do that, you would need to have the rank in the cell.
Yeah. You would be able to see where the vibration is stronger or weaker that way, Penelope.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking redo
Uh,
this, and instead of having first through 10th strongest, have vibration 1 to 32 along the top and put its rank in the cell.
If I knew how to do Excel, I could get the totals down the bottom too, couldn't I? I'm just not, I have never done an Excel spreadsheet in my life. How's that? It sounds like I've had an eternal youth, but I just haven't never done an Excel spreadsheet. There we go.
But let's
And I
think
could
about
get the
that.
totals
Is it worth
vibration down the bottom.
yeah, is it worth the trouble to to change this graph to put 1 through 32 vibes along the top and put the rank in the cell? Then if you graph that, you could see how each vibration is going up and down. Okay.
Well, I guess I'll give it a go. Does anybody else want to do some of it? I've got 4 pages of it.
Penelope,
Sorry?
I'd be happy to help you with Excel stuff.
Oh, thank you.
I
Thank you.
do Excel stuff day in, day out. So
Okay. Oh,
we
thank
can-
you.
Wonderful. Who is
Is
that
that-
that's volunteering?
Kai.
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 Yeah. And
Hello.
Kai, I'm looking
Hi,
at
Kai.
your chat here. You could have the ranks run as 10 colored lines and then have the vertical axis be the 32 vibrations. So Kai, with this idea, would you be doing one graph for each
For
eclipse.
each eclipse series, since there'd be 72 to
Oh,
85
so
dates to track within each eclipse series.
that's a clever idea. So you want to make a graph for each eclipse.
Yeah, and then you could take those and just layer them as transparent graphs grouped by the
Yeah,
ranks. So you'd see the first in each eclipse, then you'd see the second, and that sort of
Ooh,
thing.
that's a cool idea.
Ah,
yeah,
ah,
yeah.
yeah,
I like that
that
too.
sounds great.
So we have two ways
Yeah.
that I think, just to summarize, I always like to summarize key points because what happens is you go through all the stuff and then you're done and then your eyes just glaze over on, deer in the headlights problem. So two conclusions here is that one, we could reverse this graph. So instead of strongest at the top, we have vibrations at the top and put the rank from 1 to 32, what's strongest in the cells. The other idea is to do a table for each eclipse, um, and see how how all these values interact, and then they could be overlaid. The other thing is if you put these into a spreadsheet, they could automatically be graphed.
Okay, well, Kai, yeah, I think you would get this quicker than Penelope would. I've been trying to think about how this data could be converted from the one form to the other without having to re-enter everything.
Oh, well, is this a spreadsheet that
No,
this?
No, no,
she just put this on a piece of paper.
Oh,
I did
but
it
it's in some
Word.
sort of,
Yeah.
what program is it
It's in
in?
Word.
It's in Word? Okay, well, we
Word?
could take that and slice it into comma values and then just import it with Power Query. We wouldn't have to
Okay,
retype it all.
but the
Whoa.
thing is that once you've got it imported, so that you've reproduced this in Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what I would suggest you do is if you take each column and you split it into two columns and you put in the second column a 1 for each of these numbers. And then you take the second strongest, you split it into two columns, you put a 2 next to each one. That then you would have a potential for being able to move the things around and change them from vibration to order. Do you follow me?
Yeah, there's a couple other ways we could do that too when
Okay, but if
importing
you've
it.
got some ways to do
Um,
it, that's
and
fine.
then I was also thinking you were talking about basically the families of vibrations. We could do that in Excel too. We would just mod the
Oh yeah, you
numbers
can do it. There's
and
inherent problems with the families because in the first 32 vibrations, there um some families have lots of members and some families have
right,
one
right.
member, have literally one member.
But once we got those percentages, we could just balance them.
You could possibly use percentages to
Yeah.
to work that out. Yeah.
Or even ranked percentages if we
Yeah.
wanted, whatever
Yeah.
was needed there.
Yeah.
Once we got it into tables.
Right.
Yeah, one of the first things to do, since this is a Word file, as Kai said, it could be converted into a CSV file and then imported into Excel. So we don't have to retype the whole thing. But yeah, one of the first steps is to get it into a spreadsheet or, other kind
Right.
of graphing program or something. Yeah, so let me mention something. I made some videos on vibrations in Saros Cycle. Did you see those, Penelope?
I did. It's some time ago, so quite a lot of the information has unfortunately slipped to the background.
Yeah, let me share my screen real
I
quickly.
am a devotee to your videos, so yes,
Oh,
I've
good.
seen them.
I need devotees. I have a small following, but an enthusiastic one. Let me share my screen. I'm going to bump you off.
Okay, that's fine. I'll stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm sharing now. Okay. So this is the astrologydc.com. If you type in Saros under the search, I've made a series of videos, 3-part series, and then something else. in this three-part series somewhere, I talk about vibrations that continue. First, I describe what it is and why it's so extraordinary. Synodic, draconic, and anomalistic things all coincide, and it creates this wonderful repeating kinds of eclipses. And I mention here the sun-moon conjunction, the moon's nodes move forward about 11 degrees in the next eclipse in the Saros cycle. The true Lilith position moves forward 13 to 15 degrees. So what you find is that an eclipse by definition is a sun-moon conjunction, conjunct the moon's nodes. That whole thing moves forward about 11 degrees. And then I looked at what vibration that is. So Saros cycles all do tend to be, I think it was 11 and 22, which might be, so 1280 years is average, 72 eclipses is average, da 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 da. But somewhere in here I found what, and you can run series of Saros cycles in the Sirius software. You can run all 72 of them. And then,
Oh, would you mind just walking us through that quickly?
yeah, because then,
I've been doing it in groups of 10,
no, you
which
can
is a
just
little bit frustrating.
magic presto, do the whole thing.
You,
And then,
you know, the interesting thing I just did, I just tried 360 divided by 11 to see what vibration would have that degree range.
Mhm.
And it's 32.72, so it's between 32 and 33.
Yeah, that might be what's in the videos. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, that's the 11 base. I think 33. Yeah, it jumps between 32 and 33. That's what happens.
Yeah,
why you're-
see, 11 degrees is 31, is between 32 and 33 is the vibration for
Yeah.
11
So
degrees.
so Penelope, when you discovered empirically, I had discovered, you might say mathematically, we both came to the same conclusion. And so there's actually an astronomical basis. But the way to answer your question, how to do it, what you do is you go into well, I'll just do it. Go into the data entry screen, and if you have the Sirius software, click on lunations and eclipses, this button here,
Yeah,
and then select lunations and eclipses, and then select let's see,
I
so
did lunar eclipses.
you doing lunar?
Oh, I did lunar eclipses.
Okay, so we'll do
Because
lunar.
there's
For
the
the-
solar Saros cycle and a lunar cycle, isn't there?
Okay, so you did the lunar cycle, not the lunar and the solar together.
Yeah, I did the lunar cycle. Yeah.
Okay, so from one lunar eclipse to the next, is that 11 degrees, David?
Yeah, in the Saros cycle, there's a lunar Saros cycle, and I think it works the same.
Oh, you're talking about one Saros vibration to the next one in that cycle. That's your 11-degree thing.
Yeah, it's the Saros cycle, not the.
See, she's looking at the eclipses one after another, sequential in time.
No, she's using the Saros cycle, she said.
Using the Saros cycle. There's 18 years between each
Yeah,
eclipse
she's
in the
using the
chart.
Saros cycle. She's not using consecutive eclipses. She's using consecutive eclipses in a Saros cycle.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I didn't get that.
Okay, so Penelope, to answer your question, when you get into the data entry screen and you click on this lunation and eclipses, this window comes up, and you can put something like, well, that doesn't
70.
matter right now. At the bottom, select yes, succeeding eclipses. And then
Okay.
when was that first eclipse? In 1576 or something?
1521.
Do you know roughly what
1521.
it was? Was in the summer or?
Yeah, I can tell you. The 25th of October, 1521.
Okay, so I'm going to put in here October 25th, 1521. I'm going to say, give me the next 75 eclipses, which should be more than enough.
Oh, wow.
And then over
Okay.
here, I'm going to
I
say,
didn't think you could.
use place of maximum eclipse. Then it calculates the chart for where the maximum eclipse was. Looks like it's a buggy thing. I check it and then it unchecks. Place of is available only, oh, it's only available for solar eclipses. Okay, so we can't get it for lunar eclipses, so we'll have to select a place. So I'll just do Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for no particular reason. Maybe I'm in a patriotic mood, who knows? Anyway,
So
so
this was the difficulty I had. You do get it if you click below that on solar and lunar eclipses, then you can do that. If you click the one below, but
but I
then
don't
you've got
want
more
that.
eclipses than you need. Yeah.
I
He
don't.
doesn't want both eclipses, types of eclipses.
I don't know if that's going to
Uh,
work. Let me not fiddle with that right now because I don't want to experiment with something that may.
okay. Yeah.
Let me just stick to what
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure works because I think if you do solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, this will work. I don't think I've ever tried doing both at one time. But if you do this, we can try it later and see if it works. I think it'll just automatically do it. So I'll click OK,
Yeah.
and it's calculating when these eclipses occur. It's done. And now when I say I'm done, what was the Saros cycle? It should tell me that Saros cycle.
138.
There it is, 138.
138.
Now, here's another little trick with this software is if you uncheck sort, this is a
It's
trick.
frozen. Sorry, what we're seeing, sorry, David, what we're seeing has frozen. Oh, no, it hasn't. Sorry, it's come up. Just took a while to get to the southern hemisphere, that's all.
Yeah. You're too far away. Okay. So I'm going to uncheck sort. This is a little trick because if I uncheck sort, it will leave them in the order that it calculated. So this is pretty cool. This first eclipse, Saros cycle 138, number 1. There it is. Now I'm going to go to the next one. I can hit this right arrow. Saros cycle 138, number 2. They're all there, all 70 of them. Bam, you've got them. And then if you run a frequency finder, you've got them there, you can just transfer them. So they're all there.
So I did a little experiment, David, just because I put in Port Macquarie where I'm living at present, and I thought, oh my God, what if I do this entire table and then discover that the vibrations are different at the strongest point on the eclipse? And they're not. They're the
No,
they won't
same
be.
as Port Macquarie.
they'll be identical.
Well,
They'll be
my
identical.
my logic says a possibility of a change.
No,
That's my
because
logic.
because you're talking about the same time anywhere in the world, which means the planets are in the same place, Penelope. If the planets are in the same place, the vibrations will be exactly the same.
Okie dokes, I'm going to sleep on that. It just didn't click right in. All right.
Yeah, well, the planet positions, the way astrologers do it, not the way astronomers do it, but the way astrologers calculate planetary positions, they're identical everywhere in the world at a given moment in time. So it doesn't matter. Like if a baby is born at this instant, bam, in Tokyo and Rome and San Francisco, the planet positions are identical according to astrological calculations. The houses are different. We're not using houses.
The thing that
Yeah.
rotates is the wheel, where in the wheel they are, but their relationship to each other is identical.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what place you select for these purposes, you'll get the same results. Okay, so that's a little trick for getting all of the charts, and then frequency
Thank
finder
you.
attaches on to Sirius software, so then you can just select frequency finder and then they're in there. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Let me go back to the Word document and see about these other details. So we're filling out your whole procedure here, Penelope. We're giving you lots of work to do.
You.
We don't want you to have too much fun over there in Australia,
No swims for me.
No. Forget about those beautiful beaches. So what are the strongest vibrations? Okay, you're using frequency finder. We've got an idea of how to graph it, and then based on the graph, then we can decide what we're seeing. The only thing I can think of statistically is some kind of time series analysis, but I don't know. I think once we get that done, Christopher may have some good ideas on a way to analyze it as well. And then, yeah, I think we've got enough work to keep you busy for at least a few weeks, and then we could start graphing this. Now, I use the R software. A lot of people use Excel, but I think for this, Excel will be fine. Yeah. Christopher or anybody else, are there, well, Linda, you used Mathematica for a while. That's another excellent tool.
Mhm.
What other tools are there for data? The data visualization tools in R are so fantastic. I love them. Um, what other general tools are there besides R, Mathematica, Excel? Any other ideas?
There's Maple, which is just the Canadian version of Mathematica,
Is it less expensive or something?
similar program. Um, I think you've pretty much covered it.
Yeah,
Excel is kind of the go-to graphing
yeah,
tool for most people, and if you have some of the coding skills, you can get into R.
yeah. R
And
is a little bit of a
you-
learning curve to get into
yeah,
it. So yeah, R has extremely sophisticated statistics and graphic stuff built in. So sometimes you may need to migrate up to R. Like if you want to start running random forests or things like that, you're gonna need something like R.
but if I found if you're just learning how to use R, um, something like ChatGPT or the other artificial intelligence bots out there,
Yeah,
they're really great for it. You can just say, and give me example of how to code this in R to create a bar graph, histogram, pie chart, whatever.
it's crazy. I
Yeah,
started using Chat GPT for some coding. It just wrote the whole thing for me. It's like crazy.
yeah.
I
And
can't believe it.
I
Like
save
I'm
those
cheating.
examples and use them over and over again with just different data sets.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because you can do things like, go into ChatGPT and say, write program code in R. It's called an R script, write an R script, to do blah, blah, blah. And it will probably just do it for you. It's insane. Um, yeah. Uh, you still have to understand what it is. But, the other thing is you can just Google each line and find out what it's doing. Um, so you can write it and then Google each thing you see there, and it's pretty straightforward. It's hard to do it out of thin air, but since ChatGPT will do that for you, and then Google will tell you what it all means, you can actually start doing stuff without knowing hardly anything,
Yeah.
which was not true 5 or 10 years ago. Um, okay.
Yeah,
Well, we covered one person tonight, and I think that's good. If each month somebody has a project just like this that you're doing, isn't the brainstorming wonderful? I mean, if I was just doing this, it's like I'd be talking to myself. That's what I do. I talk to myself all the time. But it's fun to not talk to yourself, and then you get better ideas. Um, yeah, so I think we came up with a good plan. Um, yeah. Any other?
Thank you very much.
uh,
Very deeply
Okay.
honored for all your
Penelope,
intelligence.
Penelope, get in touch with me. I think I can do something to make your data collection much easier.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Linda. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, since you're using Frequency Finder and you have the programmer Frequency Finder right here,
Yeah.
it's all very nice. Yeah, Desdale, you have something?
yes, I think this is forming out to organically to where it's become more useful, where I see all the other technical people that are involved in the background making their contribution. KJ just made a contribution to Penelope ideas, and uh, Linda have roving ideas onto the matter. So everybody placing their ideas about the particular model that is of subject. I have a subject matter that I would put forward much more cleaner and clearer, much more easier to get into in terms of where we're going. I mean, it would have more of a participant
Yeah. So
involved.
Des, we
So
can
I,
look
I,
at,
I just made me finish my
yeah,
clearing
yeah.
it.
Go ahead.
So what I was saying now is what I've said early on in the our meetings about having everybody tool their their resources to make anybody's research easier and make it more clear and coming out more vivid. That's what I was saying. Um, and I seen it happening right now with the contribution of other peoples in the background saying their little thing here and there. But if everybody robustly place their efforts into a particular task, and then we can kind of make it much faster and get results, and then we say, well, okay, this is what Penelope has this month, and she say, well. This is what she was working on, but because of the involvement of all of us, we have refined things much clearer. We have gotten it to where we can use it in our practices. And that's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when we get together. This is kind of what I was hoping for, is that um, the more people we have with different life experiences, different talents, different perspectives, you just move much faster. It's such a vast research is basically learning, right? I mean, it's just an endless.
Yeah.
Can I add another thing to it?
Yeah.
You remember that research that I was talking about? You have placed your hands briefly on it. And about those numbers with the 0 to 10 and the 90 to 100 degree points in the zodiac sphere. You have done something on it. In fact, you have highlighted the people that would have more of a response to what I was saying. So you would you take that up as another subject matter?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So Desdale is researching degree areas of the zodiac, and I ran a little thing in the Sirius software for it. But it would be great for us to discuss it because just like we did with Penelope, getting different input, ideas, perspectives, it just becomes clearer and sharper how we can proceed. So, and that's an area that I think a lot of people, kind of thing that a lot of people like to research. So we could do that next month, look at researching degree areas. And Desdale has particular ideas on degree areas. And how would you confirm that a certain degree or area of the zodiac has a certain meaning? All the things astrologers say, there are ways to use modern research methods to evaluate these things. We don't have to just keep talking about our opinion and our, this famous person and this client. We can use modern research methods as well to get more confidence about what these things mean. So yeah, that's a good one we could do next month. All right. Anybody else
Oh,
have anything else you want to add? Are we good? Let me look
I
into
just want to say that, sometimes when I start looking at data, I think I'm going to analyze it one way, but then after I get into it, I realize I should analyze it a different way.
Yeah.
So be flexible.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning. I'm laughing because we've all hit that. You get into something and you think, oh, this is great, this is great. And then you go, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Why don't I do this? And then you just realize there's a whole other way of approaching it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then what often happens is you have a great idea and then you meet with other researchers and they have a better idea than you had, and then you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That gets to the point a lot faster.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's just like there's no
Oh,
linear way.
I've already had one massive failure. I did a personal study on Chiron with Uranus and Mercury for eureka moments, thinking there'd be a midpoint spectacular, and I could see that midpoint all through these eureka moments from Kolestrom's book. And then I found that every other human being on the planet has those moments.
Well, let me tell you one.
You know what? I get an idea that we can use Penelope for a lot of research because she does love numbers, and I just really I can't have any other opinion about Penelope. About she does love numbers in ways that we don't. But I tell you, she do it with an enthusiasm too, and that's the greatest thing. So I think that when we have Penelope on the on our worksheet on any one of our projects, I think it would be a great idea.
Oh yeah. Let me I guess I'll end the night with a funny story on artifacts, how you think you found something and you found nothing. When I first started doing astrology way back in the early 1970s, I was interviewing people and I said, "Oh my God, so many people that come to me have Virgo or Libra rising." And I started developing all these theories. Well, they have Libra rising because they want to talk to somebody, have a consultation. Virgo, they're fussy about their lives. Well, a lot of you already know the punchline here is that if you're born in the Northern Hemisphere, 2 to 3 times as many people have Virgo and Libra rising as Pisces and Aries rising, because that's the way it is. They rise much slower. I have 3 degrees Aries rising, and I noticed almost none of my clients had about the same degree rising as I do. That's because I'm in the Southern Hemisphere where Penelope is, it's reversed. So I was making this great insight into how people come for astrological consultations of Virgo and Libra rising, and all I was doing was seeing that most people have Virgo and Libra rising, but I was just beginning and I didn't understand the astronomy of things. So it can be really funny how you can be deceived by something, and that was, in retrospect, kind of silly that I was seeing that. But yeah, I didn't know any better. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you all for coming. This was a lot of fun. We made some progress, and we can all take a little credit when Penelope makes the great discovery that goes down in history. We're all part of it. Okay.
All my success, all my failure. I'm keeping an open mind here.
The failures are all your responsibility. The success
Okay,
is
thank you.
we're part of the success.
All right.
Okay,
See you later.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.